day 554 of the Trump administration. And the president escalates the war on his former lawyer and confidant Michael Cohen while denying that he had any advance knowledge about that June 2016 meeting in Trump Tower. A source has told NBC News Cohen is willing to tell Robert Mueller that Donald Trump Jr. informed his father about the meeting before it took place. Trump's son had that meeting with several Russians after he was told they were coming prepared with damaging information about Hillary Clinton. Well, today the president responded with this. So the fake news doesn't waste my time with dumb questions. No, I did not know of the meeting with my son, Don Jr. Sounds to me like someone is trying to make up stories in order to get himself out of an unrelated jam. Taxi cabs, maybe. We'll explain that one. He even retained Bill and Crooked Hillary's lawyer. Gee, I wonder if they helped him make the choice. That last reference, of course, is to Cohen's attorney, Lanny Davis, who has declined comment on the president's response or to the reports of Cohen's allegations. The president steered clear of this topic during his event at the White House today, designed to highlight economic numbers. As Trump wrapped up, however, our colleague Kristen Welker asked him about Michael Cohen.
Mr. President, is Michael Cohen telling the truth? Is Michael Cohen telling the truth? Mr. President, is Michael Cohen telling the truth?
As we say, it's been 10 times now the president has ignored reporters' questions since the Cohen audio first aired Tuesday evening. And for that matter, there have only been 3 White House press briefings in the entire month of July. On the Cohen front, Politico reports the president's advisors have, quote, been taken aback by Cohen's no-holds-barred approach and his willingness to publicly reveal potentially devastating details of his private conversations with the president. Asked to describe the mood among Trump's close confidants, one person close to the president replied simply, not good. They add this, quoting someone close to the president, Trump is enraged over the Cohen revelations. Emily Jane Fox, who is standing by to join us, has been covering the Trump-Cohen fallout for Vanity Fair. Her latest piece, out just late today, details the current mood in the Cohen camp. Quote, now the bond between Trump and Cohen appears to be irrevocably torn asunder. There is a sense that Cohen is ready to torch his old boss. Quote, maybe Cohen is going to be the thing that's going to pull this whole thing apart and unravel the myth behind the man. One person familiar with Cohen's thinking told her maybe he is the next John Dean. Fox also reports one of the people she spoke to referred to Cohen as having, quote, a treasure trove of information that he says he could unleash in order to reciprocally complicate the president's life. Donnie Deutsch, who recently spoke to Cohen, appeared on this network and had this insight into the allegation about that Trump Tower meeting.
What Michael's made very clear to me is, number one, and this is a man he worked for over a decade, nothing went on in this business without Donald knowing about it. And he had led me to believe that he could bring Trump back to Russia, what came out yesterday to me was not a surprise based on conversations Michael and I had had. Everything that was going on, Trump knew about.
Did he reference this meeting in particular when you talked to him?
Yes, he did.
Robert Mueller, for his part, has not yet spoken to Donald Trump Jr., but the two men were just a few feet apart today. Politico published this photo of both men waiting for the same flight out of D.C. while seemingly unaware of each other at Washington National Airport. There is another new development tonight regarding the special counsel. Mueller's office says it plans to call 35 witnesses in financial crimes trial of ex-Trump campaign chief Paul Manafort, which is slated to begin Tuesday. This is the first of 2 trials for Manafort. The witness list was made public just today. The biggest name on it, no surprise, is that man, Rick Gates, Manafort's former partner and one-time deputy on the Trump campaign, who pleaded guilty and is now cooperating with the Mueller investigation. After all of that, let's bring in our leadoff panel on a Friday evening. The aforementioned Emily Jane Fox, senior reporter for Vanity Fair. We should add she just wrote the book on the Trump family. It's called Born Trump, Inside America's First Family. Josh Gerstein, senior White House reporter for Politico. And Joe Weinbanks, attorney and former assistant Watergate special counsel. Good evening to you all. Emily, here in New York, I'd like to begin with you. If this relationship hasn't soured, I'd hate to see a relationship that has.
Seems a little chilly.
Yeah, well, Let's help me go through the two camps of belief, will you please, on how these recordings have entered the public domain. There's belief number one, that Cohen has leaked these as a brushback pitch to say, Mr. President, there's a lot more where this came from. Theory number two is that this is coming from the Trump team to go ahead, embrace and own some of the worst that they know is coming, because that also takes an arrow away from Cohen and his value as a flip target to the feds. Please.
This is a both very important and very complicated parlor game that we're playing here, and it's difficult because both sides have credibility issues here. So on the one side, the Cohen camp, not only have people been saying, as you said, perhaps he's sending this as a signal to what he has and what he could offer to Donald Trump, but some people have argued that perhaps he's sending a smoke signal looking for a pardon.
Yeah.
Now, people who are close to Cohen and familiar with his thinking have flat out denied that time and time again to me. They have said the way that you would get a pardon is not by angering the president and sticking a thumb in his eye repeatedly. And even if he were to get some sort of pre-pardon, then he would undoubtedly be subpoenaed and then have to testify and would not be able to plead the fifth. So that is something that, according to all of my reporting, he has taken off the table. On the other side, you have President Trump's camp. And there was a school of thought on Friday when the recordings were first released, and Rudy Giuliani was the only person on the record describing the subject matter on that tape.
We quoted you on this broadcast.
Yeah, so he was able to control the narrative for a few days until Lanny Davis did put out the actual recording earlier this week. And so it was kind of a smart tactic to be able to define the narrative, even though we now know that at the very best case for Rudy Giuliani, there are questions raised about the narrative that he laid out there. So what you have is a complicated set of motivations from each side, characters on each side that are not necessarily the most trustworthy or have the greatest credibility. And so to try and determine who leaked what when is a difficult game. I will say that from my reporting in the Cohen world of the past 24 hours, particularly after this revelation last night about what Michael Cohen may know about the Trump Tower meeting, they have said over and over again, we did not leak this because this does not serve us. To have this out in the public was not our strategy. We wanted to be able to go to the special counsel, Robert Mueller, with this information. It doesn't serve us to have this out in the public. Now, it is possible in some way that it does serve President Trump to have one of the most damaging things out there, perhaps to control the narrative again, and perhaps to make it more difficult for Michael Cohen to cooperate. If Michael Cohen is not going to cooperate, then maybe the president can breathe a little easier tonight.
And Josh, the only problem with conversations the likes of which we're having here is it's about the mechanics of leaking. And we're forgetting the story in chief is, oh, yeah, by the way, it's alleged the president had a heads up on Russians coming to his office building in New York prior to him becoming president with dirt on his opponent. At the top of the ticket, as they say, one Donald Trump, Josh, has been conspicuously silent, but for his Twitter feed this week.
Right. And, you know, given his no collusion mantra that he's put forward time and time again, there could hardly be a more damaging allegation than that he was aware in advance that his campaign was endeavoring to get damaging political intelligence about his opponent from Russians that I believe his own family had been told had some connection to the Russian government. So there's no question that this would injure his narrative if people believe it. I think the problem is, as Emily points out, there's a need for some additional corroboration. You have a number of figures here whose credibility is not particularly high and who have made a number of statements that prove not to be accurate. And the real question, I think, is not whether Michael Cohen has stories that could damage the president, but whether he can lead Robert Mueller or other federal investigators like the folks in New York to provable facts, to other sources of information that can allow them to assemble a damaging case against the president. If it's just stories that he's telling Michael Cohen, I don't think it's going to be that damaging.
And now to Jill Wine-Banks. Counselor, if there's a short version of this answer, if it's answerable, in your view, how has Cohen's case changed this week since Tuesday. How has Trump's case changed this week?
I would say that Cohen is in the same position he was in terms of whatever evidence exists against him, but that he has put himself in a better position because if he really does have the willingness to testify that he was in the room when Donald Trump Sr. learned about the meeting in Trump Tower, and if he will identify the other people who, rumor has it, were also in the room, it means that it's not his word against the president's word. And as everybody has pointed out, they both have credibility issues. Giuliani is saying that Cohen is a pathological liar, and he knows that because Cohen lied for his client for many years, which is not exactly a very strong defense. And what does that make the client who hired the lawyer to lie for him? So they both have credibility issues. But if he can identify other witnesses, I think Josh pointed this out, it means that there's a really credible case. And to some extent, if I'm viewing this as a trial lawyer, juries really can make logical conclusions. And the evidence at this point is now getting very compelling that there was a clear willingness to accept help from the Russians to win the election, to collude with them, as the public is calling it, or to enter into a conspiracy with them, which is what the crime is. And I think it really has gone to the stage where we're really getting somewhere now, and we could have a very significant case.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.